Hello. How precise are you when you speak? Okay. How good are you at selecting the right word at the right time to make the right meaning? Well, if you need a little bit of help with that and you want to improve your reading and writing fill in the blanks, then you should watch this lesson. My name is Jay. I'm one of the expert teachers here at E2 Language. So this is reading and writing fill in the blanks method 2.0. This is what reading and writing fill in the blanks looks like on test A, although it won't say blah, 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 blah. There'll be a paragraph of text or a couple of paragraphs of text. It'll be up to 300 words. You'll see a few gaps in there, and when you click on the gap, you'll see drop-down lists. There'll be 4 answer options. Only one will be correct. Typically, it's going to test you on meaning or word choice. That is, one of the words will be precise, it will complete the sentence accurately or precisely, but there'll be 3 synonyms or related words that will sort of be tempting to choose, but they're going to be imprecise or slightly wrong. Not completely wrong, just slightly wrong. That's what makes this task so challenging. So for example, you might click on the drop-down list and the 4 words will be smart, scholarly, clever, and intellectual. You can see that there's a relationship, a meaningful relationship between these 4 words. But in this particular context, only the word scholarly, for example, is right. You'll also get tested on your grammar. This is a little bit less common, this question type, or this drop-down list. But basically what you'll get are 4 different word forms. That is, it'll be the same word. One of them will only be grammatical. Only one of them, I should say, will be grammatical. The other 3 will be ungrammatical. For example, you might get scholar, scholarly, school, and scholastic. These are pretty much the same word in terms of their meaning. However, their form differs here. You've got an adjective, you've got an adverb, you've got a noun and another adjective. But in this particular context, you need to select the adverb, for example. We're going to look at these in detail, by the way. I'm just very briefly introducing this to you. But later on in this lesson, we're going to look at how we can do this properly. You'll also be tested on your understanding and application of collocation. That is, your ability to create a natural sounding phrase. Let's say, for example, you get a verb like take, right? And you need to complete this natural sounding phrase. So there'll be 3 words that will be wrong. It won't make a natural sounding phrase, but one of the words will. Okay, for example, take duty is wrong, take authority is wrong, take task is wrong, but take responsibility, for example, is a nice natural sounding phrase. So that's collocation. And finally, it's going to test your ability to read in context. So you click on the drop-down list, 3 of these words will be wrong because the correct one will come from the general context of the paragraph, either before the gap or after the gap. Okay? You might get questions like this as well. Okie dokie, so let's talk about some facts of this task. So on test A, you're going to get 5 or 6 reading and writing fill in the blanks. They have integrated scoring. That is, they contribute points to both your reading and writing score. And you can see why. Word choice is important for writing because when you're writing a sentence and you're thinking, which word am I going to use? And you've got these series of adjectives in your mind, for example, only one or maybe a few, but particularly one will be precise in that moment, in that context, to convey the meaning precisely, correctly, accurately. And with regard to time management, you should be spending less than 3 minutes on each of these reading tasks. Remember, in the reading section, you manage your own time. Therefore, you need to take responsibility, there's that collocation, for each question as you go along. Okay? Cool bananas. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're not a subscriber to our PTE channel, I don't know how you live with yourself. You should click that subscribe button because we do cool live streams and launch videos and do rad stuff all the time. Okie dokie. All right, let's talk about the method behind word choice, okay? Because what you're doing really is some sort of cognitive magic trick, right? I don't know where language appears from. It's just bizarre. I actually, uh, I don't choose my words, or I don't make the words appear in my mind. They just sort of appear there by themselves. I guess what I can do is, if I get a bunch of possible words appearing in my mind, I can sort of select which one I want to use. And sometimes you just have to rest and let it sort of appear magically by itself, okay? How does this work though? Let's talk about that in detail. Okay, with regard to word choice, we're talking about meaning, grammar, collocation, and context. Let's talk more deeply about meaning first. So here we have an excerpt from a dictionary, and we're looking at the word messy, which is an adjective. And there are heaps of synonyms, synonymous words, words with very similar meaning to the word messy, like dirty, filthy, grubby, soiled, grimy, begrimed, mucky, muddy, slimy, sticky, sully, spotted, stained, smeared, smudged, tarnished, disheveled, blousy, scruffy, rumpled, matted, unkept, tousled, bedraggled, tangled, slapdash, slovenly, yucky. British apparently say gungy. There you go. And the antonym, or the opposite, is clean. So this is what's sort of happening in your mind. And if you have a broad vocabulary, which is a very good thing to have on test day, and a deep vocabulary, that is, you can see the slight meaning differences between each of these words because they don't mean the exact same thing. There are slight differences. You use some of them in some contexts and others in other contexts, etc. I forget how to finish that sentence there, but the point being, one word will have many synonyms. Cool. Okay, so let's take a look at this sentence here. It says, an extremely something personal space leads people to believe the owner of that space is more neurotic. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to select the right answer here according to the context and according to meaning. So it can't be soiled because soiled typically refers to dirty clothes, like I might soil my shirt. I think babies soil nappies. It can't be tarnished because tarnished usually refers to like metal objects. Like you might have, I don't know, a metal cup that is tarnished, right? And smeared refers more to like using pens and ink when you smear ink on the paper. So you can see the relationship between the meaning of being related to messy, but in this context, messy is the correct answer because we're talking about a messy personal space. The other ones, although related, are not precise. Cool. So messy is the answer there. That's pretty straightforward. Let's look at grammar now and see how grammar works with regard to word choice. Let's look at this sentence here. It says, psychologists explored the degree of something in one's workspace and how it affects perceptions of the owner's personality. If you're really good at your grammar, you can probably look at this sentence and look at that gap and decide whether it's supposed to be a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb, or even a preposition perhaps, okay? Just take a look for a second here. What type of word could fit there? It's a little bit difficult. Let me give you a hint and give you the options. So is it messy, messily, messed up, or messiness? In other words, is it the adjective, the adverb, the phrasal verb, or the noun? You have 10 seconds to select the right answer. And in this particular context, the right word form is in fact the noun form. Psychologists explored the degree of messiness in one's workspace and how it affects perceptions of the owner's personality. The other word forms were ungrammatical. They wouldn't work. They are just wrong. So that's another type of question you have to keep in mind. And just here, I want to give a little plug to this amazing website called e2school.com, and on e2school.com you can do the grammar review course. It's 100% free. I'm one of the teachers. Has lots and lots of activities related to building your grammar. And what we do is we look at all the different parts of speech in English, all the verbs, present perfect, past simple, present continuous, etc. We look at nouns, abstract, concrete, countable, uncountable. We look at all the adverb forms, the adjectival forms, etc. So if you are having trouble with your English grammar, sign up for free at e2school.com and check out the grammar review course. Okay, let's push on. Let's talk about collocation. Remember, what I mean by collocation is a natural sounding phrase. So let's look at this sentence here. In 3 experiments, about 160 participants were randomly something to sit in a researcher's office that was clean and uncluttered. What do you think the word is that completes the natural sounding phrase here and pairs with that adverb randomly? Randomly what? What do you think it is? Let's take a look at the possibilities. Is it randomly assigned, randomly appointed, randomly elected, or randomly designated? You have 10 seconds to choose. Okay, the correct answer here is randomly assigned. Participants were randomly assigned. Okay, I guess what's happening here is we've talked about meaning, we've talked about grammar, we've talked about collocation, and in all of those scenarios, it's all also been about context, because here we're talking about a scientific experiment. Now, if this were about, I don't know, political elections, for example, it would be randomly elected or something like that. You know, it might change. So it is a collocation, but the collocation sits within a greater context. And I guess what I'm trying to say here, or what I'm getting at, is it's really important, if not critically important, that you understand what you read entirely. In that paragraph, or those paragraphs in reading and writing, fill in the blanks, you need to understand it, because it's only from the context that you will then be able to do the meaning, the grammar, the collocations. Okay? If you need help with your vocabulary, because reading ultimately is about vocabulary, if you need help, check out Level 4 Test Ready on e2school.com. It's the website I mentioned just before. This particular course is awesome. Alex and Siley will teach you how to build your vocabulary. They'll give you some test practice. They'll look at reading, listening, writing, speaking, as well as grammar. It's a really good course if you're sort of lacking a wide vocabulary. And they teach you by theme. So you'll look at education, environment, technology, for example, okay? So if you are taking a PTE test or an IELTS test or whatever, this will be helpful for you. Okay, let's look at context more broadly here. So here we're looking at, well, what is it? Is it a few sentences, 3 sort of paragraphs, and you can see a gap there in the middle, in the something office. Now, this one is not about meaning. Well, it is about meaning, but it's more than that. It's not about grammar, and it's not about collocation. In order to get this one right, let's look at the answer options. In order to choose if the answer is messy, first, neat, or primary, you need to have understood what comes before the gap and what comes after the gap, the greater context in which that gap exists, okay? So I'm going to give you 45 seconds to quickly read all of the paragraphs here. Please do, don't skip forward. See if you can do this, because on test day, you're going to have to do this. But the importance here is that you understood what comes before, you have understood what comes after, and then, and only then, will you be able to select the correct word. You have 45 seconds. All right, let's take a look at this. I'm going to jump in here. Okay, so we've got a bit of a background sentence here talking about sort of setting up the experiment. Have a look here. Papers were stacked on the desk. Books and journals were up. Oh, you can't quite see this. Upright. Files drawers had typewritten labels. All garbage was in the waste. Okay. Now think about the contrast of that paragraph to this one. The somewhat messy office had books tilted over. A textbook and papers lying on the floor, and a wall clock an hour off, okay? And the very messy office had appeared even dirtier, more disorganized, and had increased clutter. So here, this one, we're talking about something very dirty, okay? So if we're going to be contrasting this, in this, what office would this be called? It'd probably be called a neat office, right? In the neat office, it was all organized, and then it was contrasted by the messy and then the very messy. So the only way I could get that answer was by understanding the beginning, the middle, and the end. Did you get it right? Hopefully you did. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a lovely comment below, including a smiley face or a thumbs up or whatever thoughts you may have about this. Okay, so what did we learn in this lesson? Well, we learned that word choice consists of meaning. Ultimately, it consists of meaning, right? You need to be precise in your choosing of the word, and that is why this contributes points to your writing score as well. But also think about it when you're speaking, when you're doing describe image or retell lecture, be precise in your word choice. It also takes into consideration grammar, word forms, as well as collocation, natural sounding phrases. And it also considers the overall context in which that gap sits, okay? That's what we learned in this lesson. If you're watching this on YouTube and you are not yet a student on e2language.com, do become one. You can sign up for free. We have live classes, one-on-one tutorials, smart questions, speaking and writing feedback. Check out www.e2language.com. Cool. I hope it helps. Remember to check out this website. I'll see you soon.